In the summer of 1518, hundreds of people in a small European town started dancing, violently, uncontrollably, and they couldn't stop. Days passed, then weeks. People collapsed. Some died. No music, no joy. Just a plague of pure, unrelenting movement. This isn't folklore. It really happened. And we still don't fully understand why. Welcome to Strasbourg, a bustling medieval town nestled in what's now France. Ruled by the Holy Roman Empire, plague, famine, and religious panic were part of daily life. But nothing could have prepared them for this. It started quietly. In July 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea walked into the street and began to dance. Not a joyful jig, not a graceful ballet. This was frantic, erratic, and compulsive. She danced for hours, then into the night. The next day, she was still dancing. Then the next, no music, no crowd, just her, flailing in a trance. Within a week, 30 more people had joined her. By the end of the month, that number exploded to over 400, and they couldn't stop. Strasbourg streets filled with bodies not of the dead, but of the dancing. People danced until their feet bled, until their legs gave out, until they collapsed from exhaustion, and some never got up. Historical reports say between 15 and 100 people died, from the sheer physical toll, heart attacks, strokes, dehydration, and yet more kept dancing. It wasn't just a physical event. It was a social and spiritual crisis. So what did the city officials do? The worst thing possible, believing the dancers would recover if they simply danced it out, like some medieval version of catharsis. They built a stage, hired musicians, and even designated dance zones. Yes, they encouraged more dancing. It was like treating smoke with fire. The cure just amplified the madness. By August, the town was in full meltdown. Clergy declared it divine punishment. Physicians said it was hot blood, an imbalance of humors. The common people, they thought they were cursed. Now let's jump forward 500 years. What do we think happened? The leading theory today is mass psychogenic illness, what we used to call mass hysteria. Basically, a psychological condition spreading through crowds, triggered by stress, fear, and social contagion. And 1518 was primed for it. Famine had ravaged the region. Plague and syphilis were rampant. The church preached divine wrath. Life was brutal. And faith was tightly wound with fear. So when one woman broke under pressure, others followed. Not consciously, but emotionally, spiritually. And their bodies responded in kind. But that's not the only theory. Some believe the dancers were victims of ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic mold that grows on damp rye. Ergot contains LSD-like compounds. Eating contaminated bread could trigger delusions, convulsions, and even death. It sounds plausible until you realize ergot causes violent seizures, not coordinated dance. And it tends to isolate, not spread socially. Also, if it was in the food, why didn't the entire town hallucinate together? So that theory mostly crumbles under scrutiny. Others point to Saint Vitus, a Christian martyr believed to punish sinners with uncontrollable dancing. Medieval Europeans feared him so much they held annual dancing processions to appease his ghost. Some scholars think the dancers believed they'd been cursed by Saint Vitus. And in an age where belief shaped reality, especially in tightly knit, spiritually charged towns, this could have triggered a psychosomatic response. Think about it. Belief so strong, it hijacks your body. And once it began, the crowd psychology took over. In medieval minds, that was a plague, one you couldn't vaccinate against. Eventually, the city gave up on music therapy and turned back to religion. The remaining dancers were carted to the shrine of Saint Vitus in the mountains. There, barefoot and bleeding, they prayed, received holy water, and performed rituals. Slowly, the dancing stopped. And just like that, it ended. No vaccine, no mass arrests, no scientific breakthrough, just faith and exhaustion. Then came silence. You might think this kind of event could never happen today, but mass psychogenic illness still happens. In 1962, hundreds of Tanzanian schoolgirls broke out in contagious laughter for days. In 1983, a West Bank high school saw mass fainting. And in 2011, several New York teens developed identical tics with no medical explanation. When stress, fear, and belief collide, our minds can rebel. And sometimes, they take our bodies along for the ride. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's strangest events. Not just because people danced until they died, but because we still don't fully understand why. It reminds us that the human mind is fragile, that belief can be powerful, and that sometimes the most dangerous plagues don't come from germs, but from fear itself. If this story left your jaw on the floor, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Could you have survived the dancing plague? Or would you be toe-stepping into the afterlife? Subscribe for more real history that sounds made up, but absolutely isn't.